not able to right now. That was cool. I can't believe I did that. What the heck? I'm not able to right now. That was cool.
He didn't just break a few plates. He shattered the entire world of New York's elite in under 5 minutes. They called him a monster, a volatile prince with too much power and zero control. But when the heir to the city's most dangerous crime family tore apart a Michelin star restaurant with his bare hands, everyone froze in terror, except for one person. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't even speak. She just handed him a glass of water. And that single silent act didn't just save the restaurant, it started a war that would burn the city to the ground. This is the story of Declan Moretti and the waitress who tamed the beast. The sound of crystal shattering against marble is distinct. It's a sharp, violent soprano note that cuts through the low murmur of polite conversation like a gunshot. At L'Orizzonte, Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop dining experience, that sound was usually followed by a hush, a gasp, and a frantic waiter rushing to sweep up the debris. Tonight, it was followed by a table being overturned. "I said," the voice boomed deep and ragged, with a mixture of Scotch and pure, unadulterated rage, "that this tastes like ash." Declan Moretti stood in the center of the dining room, his chest heaving. He was 25, standing 6'3", with shoulders that strained the fabric of a bespoke Italian suit that likely cost more than the average car. His dark hair was disheveled, falling over eyes that burned with a terrifying hollow darkness. He gripped the edge of a heavy oak table vase bulging in his forearms and flipped it. Silverware imported porcelain and half-eaten risottos went flying, crashing into the neighboring booth. A woman in pearls screamed, scrambling back so fast she tripped over her own chair. "Declan, please!" a man in a grey suit whispered, stepping forward tentatively. It was his bodyguard, weak and terrified. "Your father. My father isn't here!" Declan roared, spinning around. He grabbed a bottle of wine from a nearby cart and hurled it at the floor-to-ceiling window. It didn't break the reinforced glass, but it shattered on impact, spraying expensive red wine like arterial spray across the pristine white tablecloths. "I am here, and I am sick of this plastic, fake, pathetic silence." The restaurant, usually a sanctuary for politicians, tech moguls and old money, had turned into a she with a tiger loose inside. The manager, a trembling man named Mr. Henderson, was hiding behind the host stand, frantically dialing 911, though everyone knew the police wouldn't come. Not for a Moretti. The Moretti family owned the precinct, just as they owned the concrete in the foundation of this building. Declan was a hurricane. He kicked a serving cart, sending it skidding across the floor. He wasn't just drunk. He was broken. Earlier that evening, he had learned the truth about his mother's accident 10 years ago. A hit ordered by his own uncle, sanctioned by his father's silence. The betrayal was a black hole in his chest, consuming him from the inside out. He wanted to hurt the world because the world had hurt him. "Look at you," Declan spat, glaring at the terrified patrons cowering against the walls. "Cowards, all of you, you sit here eating gold while the city rots." He grabbed a heavy brass candelabra. The flame flickered dangerously close to the curtains. "Sir, please," a waiter squeaked, dropping a tray. Declan turned on him, his eyes predatory. The waiter froze, tears welling up. Declan took a step forward, the brass weapon raised. The air left the room. Violence wasn't just a possibility. It was a guarantee. Then movement. It wasn't a security guard. It wasn't a cop. It was a girl. Ryder Mitchell had been working at L'Orizzonte for 3 weeks. She was invisible, just another pair of hands in a black uniform and a white apron. She had messy brown hair, tied back in a strict bun, and her eyes, usually downcast, were a striking, piercing hazel. She was 22, putting herself through nursing school while caring for a sick grandmother. She knew what pain looked like. She saw it in the hospital wards every morning. And she saw it now. While the rest of the staff fled to the kitchen, Ryder didn't move away. She moved toward him. "Get back," the bodyguard hissed at her. "He'll kill you." Ryder ignored him. She didn't walk with the hurried panic of a victim. She walked with a steady, eerie calm. She navigated through the broken glass, her black work shoes crunching over the shards. Declan was breathing hard, his back to her, ready to smash the candelabra into a mirror. Ryder stopped 2 feet behind him. She didn't touch him. She didn't shout, "Stop!" She simply placed a clean, heavy crystal glass on a surviving side table. The clink was soft, but in the terrified silence, it sounded like a bell. Declan froze. His arm, raised to strike, hovered in the air. He turned slowly, his eyes wild, expecting a challenge. He found Ryder. She wasn't looking at the wreckage. She wasn't looking at the bodyguard. She was looking directly into his eyes. Her face was completely blank, not fearful, not angry, not judging. Just present. She reached for a silver pitcher of ice water. With a steady hand, she poured the water into the glass. The sound of the liquid hitting the crystal was hypnotic. Glug, glug, glug. She set the pitcher down. She picked up the glass, and she held it out to him. For 10 heartbeats, nobody breathed. Mr. Henderson, peeking from behind the podium, squeezed his eyes shut, expecting the girl's hand to be broken, or worse. Declan stared at the glass. The condensation was already forming on the outside. He looked from the water to Ryder's face. "Do you know who I am?" Declan growled, his voice low, vibrating with threat. Ryder didn't blink. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just pushed the glass forward another inch, offering it. "I could snap your neck," he whispered, stepping closer. He towered over her, a wall of expensive cologne, alcohol, and violence. "I could burn this place down with you inside it." Ryder remained silent. But then she did something that stopped the air in Declan's lungs. She reached into her apron pocket. Declan flinched, his muscles coiling, expecting a weapon. The bodyguard reached for his holster. Ryder pulled out a small white paper napkin. She unfolded it slowly. Declan's right hand, the one that had flipped the table and smashed the wine bottle, was bleeding. A shard of glass had sliced across his knuckles. Blood was dripping onto the expensive Persian rug. Ryder took his hand. The contact was electric. Declan jolted as if he'd been burned. No one touched him. Not without permission, not without fear. Her hands were rough, calloused from hard work, but her touch was impossibly gentle. She didn't look at his face anymore. She looked at his wound. She wrapped the napkin around his knuckles, applying firm, steady pressure. The rage that had been boiling in Declan's veins, the white-hot fire that wanted to consume the world, hit a wall of cold water. He looked down at this tiny woman, this nobody who was holding the hand of a monster, as if it were a wounded bird. "Why?" He croaked, the single word escaping him before he could stop it. Ryder looked up. Her hazel eyes were clear. She finally spoke, her voice soft, barely a whisper, yet it carried across the silent room. "Because you're bleeding," she said. It was so simple, so stupidly, insultingly simple. She didn't care about the money. She didn't care about the Moretti name. She saw blood, so she stopped it. Declan's grip on the candelabra loosened. It fell from his left hand, landing with a heavy thud on the carpet. He looked at the glass of water she had set down. His throat felt like sandpaper. With his bandaged hand, he reached out his fingers, trembling slightly, and took the glass. He downed it in one long swallow. He slammed the glass back onto the table. The spell broke. Declan looked around the room, really seeing it for the first time. The terror in the eyes of the patrons, the destruction, the mess. He looked back at Ryder. She had stepped back now, her hands clasped in front of her apron, returning to the posture of a servant. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a thick money clip. He didn't count it. He threw the entire wad, thousands of dollars, onto the table next to the water glass. "For the mess," he muttered. He turned on his heel and stormed toward the exit, his bodyguards scrambling to catch up. At the door, he paused. He didn't look back, but he hesitated for a fraction of a second, his hand on the brass handle. Then he was gone, swallowed by the elevator. The room exhaled. "You idiot!" Mr. Henderson screamed, rushing out from his hiding spot. His face was purple. "You stupid, reckless girl! Do you have a death wish?" Ryder was already bending down, picking up the larger shards of the wine bottle. "He was in pain, sir," she said quietly. "He is a Moretti," Henderson spat, wiping sweat from his forehead. "He could have shot you. You're fired. Get your things. Get out. I don't want his father thinking we provoked him by having some waitress stare him down." Ryder paused, a piece of green glass in her hand. She looked at her manager, then at the destruction. She needed this job. Her grandmother's medication was expensive. The rent was due in 3 days. "Sir, please," she said, her voice steady but tight. "I didn't provoke him. I calmed him down." "You touched him!" Henderson shrieked. "Get out now." Ryder stood up. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She placed the glass shard in the trash bin, untied her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table next to the thousands of dollars Declan had left. She walked out the back door into the cold, rainy alleyway of New York City. She had no job, no money, and no idea that the man whose hand she had bandaged was currently sitting in the back of a Rolls-Royce, staring at his own blood-stained knuckles, unable to get the image of her hazel eyes out of his head. The next morning, the city was grey. Declan Moretti sat in the study of his father's estate in Long Island. The room smelled of old leather and cigar smoke. His father, Don Salvatore, sat behind a massive mahogany desk reading the newspaper. "I hear you had a lively evening," Salvatore said without looking up. Declan nursed a black coffee. His head was pounding, a hangover from hell. But worse than the headache was the memory. He remembered the rage, sure, but mostly he remembered the silence and the napkin. He looked at his hand. The cut was deep, but it had stopped bleeding. He hadn't changed the bandage. It was the same cheap white paper napkin from the restaurant. It was nothing. Declan grunted. Nothing. Salvatore lowered the paper. His eyes were cold, like shark eyes. "You caused $50,000 in damages at L'Horizonte. I had to call the owner personally." "I paid for it," Declan snapped. "Money isn't the point, Declan. Control is the point. You lack it." Salvatore stood up, walking to the window. "You are reckless. A dog batulus dog that bites everyone eventually gets put down. Even my dog." The threat hung in the air. Declan's jaw tightened. He hated his father. He hated this life. But he was trapped in it. "I handled it," Declan said, standing up. I'm going out. Where? To collect a debt. Declan lied. He didn't go to collect money. He got into his black Audi R8, ditching his driver, and drove back into the city. He drove straight to L'Horizon. It was 11:00 a.m. The restaurant was closed for lunch prep. Declan banged on the front glass door. Mr. Henderson opened it, looking pale. When he saw Declan, he nearly fainted. Mr. Moretti, sir. We are closed, but for you, please come in. We replaced the tables. Everything is— Where is she? Declan cut him off, stepping inside. The place looked perfect again, as if his rage had never happened. Who, sir? The girl, Declan said, looking around the empty dining room. The waitress, brown hair, hazel eyes, roughly 5'5". She was here last night. Henderson swallowed hard. Oh. Her. Ryder. Ryder. Declan tested the name. It felt soft on his tongue. Bring her to me. I can't, sir. Declan turned slowly, his eyes darkening. And why is that? I fired her. Henderson stammered, wringing his hands. Last night, right after you left. I didn't want any trouble, sir. She was out of line touching you like that. I got rid of her immediately to show my respect to your family. Declan stared at the little man. A cold, icy feeling washed over him. She had saved the restaurant. She had saved him from doing something he couldn't take back. And she had been fired for it. You fired her. Declan repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Because she helped me. I thought... Declan laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You thought you were showing me respect by firing the only person in this godforsaken city who showed me an ounce of humanity. Declan grabbed Henderson by the lapels of his cheap suit and shoved him against the wall. Where does she live? I don't know. I have her file. I can get her address, Henderson shrieked. Get it now. 5 minutes later, Declan was back in his car with a slip of paper. Ryder Mitchell, 42B, East Village, Apt 4C. It was a rundown area, not the slums, but close. Declan revved the engine. He didn't know what he was doing. He was a Moretti. He didn't chase waitresses. He took what he wanted, or he destroyed what he hated. But this was different. He looked at his bandaged hand again. Because you're bleeding. He put the car in gear and sped off toward the East Village. The building at 42B was a decaying tooth in the mouth of the city. It smelled of boiled cabbage, damp drywall, and desperation. Declan Moretti, dressed in a suit that cost more than this entire zip code's monthly rent, felt the grime sticking to his shoes as he climbed the narrow, flickering stairwell to the 4th floor. He could hear shouting before he reached apartment 4C. Don't care about your grandmother's lungs. Ryder, I care about my money. You're 3 days late, and I see you walking in here with no uniform in the middle of the day. You get fired again. Declan stopped outside the thin wooden door. He recognized the other voice instantly. It was Ryder's, but it wasn't the calm, silent voice from the restaurant. It was strained, cracking, with panicked exhaustion. Mr. Petrocelli, please. It was a misunderstanding. I'll have another job by tomorrow. I just need until Friday to get the cash together. The medication cost more this month and— Friday isn't today, the landlord bellowed. There was a loud thump, like a heavy hand hitting a wall. You have 24 hours, or I'm putting your sick granny on the street, and I'm keeping your deposit to cover the cleaning fees. The door suddenly yanked open. A squat, balding man in a grease-stained tracksuit barreled out, almost colliding with Declan's chest. Mr. Petrocelli stopped short. He looked up at the towering figure in the Italian suit, the silk tie, and the face that looked like a thunderstorm chiseled out of granite. He recognized the look of dangerous money immediately. "Can I help you, buddy?" Petrocelli demanded, trying to sound tough, but his voice wavered. Declan ignored him. He looked past the landlord into the apartment. It was tiny, a single room that served as a kitchen and living space. In the corner behind a flimsy curtain, an elderly woman lay coughing in a hospital bed that took up half the floor space. Ryder stood in the center of the room. She wore grey sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt. Her hair was loose, chaotic around her pale face. Her eyes were red-rimmed. When she saw Declan, the color drained completely from her face. She didn't move toward him this time. She stepped back, placing herself between him and her grandmother's bed. "A shield." "You," she whispered, horrified. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" "Who is this guy, Ryder?" Petrocelli snapped, turning back to her. "Some rich boyfriend you're holding out on me with." Declan's hand moved faster than Petrocelli could blink. He grabbed the landlord by the throat, not squeezing, just holding him there, pinning him against the door frame with effortless, terrifying strength. "The rent?" Declan said, his voice a low rumble. "How much is it?" Petrocelli's eyes bulged. He clawed weakly at Declan's wrist. $800. A month. She owes for this month." Declan reached into his pocket with his free hand, the one still wrapped in Ryder's cheap paper napkin. He pulled out the money clip again. He peeled off $100 bills and shoved them into the landlord's shirt pocket. "That's 1,000. Keep the change for the inconvenience." Declan released him. "If you ever raise your voice to her again, or threaten that old woman, I will buy this building just so I can evict you. Do you understand?" Petrocelli nodded frantically, gasping for air. He scrambled down the hallway like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. Declan stepped inside the apartment and closed the door, shutting out the world. The silence returned. It was just him, Ryder, and the raspy breathing of her grandmother behind the curtain. Ryder wasn't grateful. Her hazel eyes were blazing with a fury he hadn't seen the night before. "Get out!" she hissed, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Declan was taken aback. People didn't tell him to get out. People begged him to stay or begged him to leave, but they never demanded. "I just paid your rent," he said, confused. "I didn't ask you to." She kept her voice low so as not to wake her grandmother, which made her anger seem even more intense. "You got me fired. You destroyed my livelihood in 5 minutes because you were having a tantrum. And now you show up here throwing money around, scaring my landlord. You think you're a hero. You're a wrecking ball." It was the most she had ever spoken to him, and every word landed harder than a punch. She wasn't afraid of him at all. She was disgusted by him. "Henderson fired you." Declan defended himself weakly. "Not me. Because of you." Ryder stepped closer, poking a finger hard into his expensive suit chest. "Because he was terrified you'd come back and kill us all if he kept the girl who dared to touch the great Declan Moretti. Do you have any idea what it's like for real people? I need that job. My grandmother needs her medicine. I don't have a mansion to run back to when things get hard." Declan looked at her, really looked at her. The exhaustion under her eyes, the fraying collar of her t-shirt, the fierce protective stance she took in this tiny, squalid room. He felt a sensation in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Shame. He looked down at his bandaged hand. "You stopped the bleeding," he said quietly. "It was a napkin, not a miracle," she retorted. "It stopped me," he corrected. He met her eyes. "Nobody stops me, Ryder. Nobody ever has." He took a deep breath, the smell of poverty filling his nose. He hated it. He hated that she was here because of him. "I owe you a debt. A Moretti always pays his debts. I don't want your money. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a job." Ryder stopped. "What?" Declan looked around the tiny apartment. "You're in nursing school. You need money, and you need flexible hours to take care of her." He gestured toward the curtain. "My father. He requires a private medical attendant at the estate. Someone discreet. Someone who doesn't get rattled by difficult personalities. The pay is $5,000 a week, plus room and board for both of you in the guest cottage." Ryder stared at him. $5,000 a week. It was life-changing money. It would pay off her debts, cover the best doctors for her, Nana pay her tuition in full. But it meant entering his world, the world of the man who flipped tables because his risotto was cold. "Why?" she asked suspiciously. "Because you're the only person in this city who isn't afraid of me," Declan said honestly. "And I need someone around who tells me the truth, even if I don't want to hear it." Ryder looked at the curtain hiding her grandmother. She heard the wet, painful cough. She swallowed her pride. She had no choice. "When do I start?" The Moretti estate in Long Island wasn't a home. It was a fortress disguised as a palace. High stone walls, iron gates patrolled by armed guards, and acres of manicured lawns that felt unnatural in their perfection. Ryder and her grandmother, Nana Rose, were moved into the guest cottage 3 days later. It was larger and nicer than any apartment Ryder had ever seen, let alone lived in. It was fully stocked with medical equipment, and a specialized private doctor had already visited Rose, courtesy of Declan's bank account. Ryder was given a uniform, not a waitress apron, but refined navy blue medical scrubs. Her job, she quickly realized, wasn't really taking care of Don Salvatore's minor heart condition. Her job was to be Declan's shadow. She managed his schedule. She ensured he actually ate something other than scotch, and yes, she checked his vitals when he came home at 3 a.m., smelling of gunpowder and cheap perfume, shaking from adrenaline or terror. For the first 2 weeks, it was a cold war. Declan would bark orders. Ryder would execute them silently, never flinching, never offering a smile. He would try to bait her into an argument just to get a reaction, and she would simply hand him his coffee and remind him he had a meeting with the union leaders in 20 minutes. But proximity breeds familiarity. One stormy night, Ryder was in the main house kitchen at 2 a.m., making tea. She couldn't sleep. The silence of the estate was too loud compared to the city noise she was used to. She heard a noise from the library, a strangled cry. She walked down the massive, darkened hallway. The library door was ajar. Inside, Declan was asleep in a leather armchair, a half-empty tumbler of bourbon on the table. He was thrashing his head, whipping back and forth. "No," he whimpered, a sound so childlike it broke her heart. "Mama, don't get in the car. Please, don't." Ryder knew the rumors. Everyone in New York knew that Maria Moretti had died in a car bomb 10 years ago, a message sent to Salvatore by a rival family. Declan had been 15. He screamed, waking himself up. He bolted upright, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. He looked wild, disoriented, his eyes darting around the shadows. He saw Ryder standing in the doorway. He immediately stiffened, his mask of cold indifference slamming back into place. "What are you doing here, spying on me?" he snapped, though his voice was shaky. Ryder didn't answer. She walked into the room, placed her mug of tea on the table next to his bourbon. "Chamomile," she said softly. "It helps with the nightmares." Declan stared at the tea. He looked ready to throw it across the room just like he had at the restaurant. "I don't have nightmares," he lied. "You were screaming for your mother," Ryder said flatly. She wasn't accusing him. She was just stating a clinical fact. Declan flinched. He looked at her with such raw, naked vulnerability that she almost looked away. "Get out," he whispered. But this time it wasn't a threat. It was a plea. He didn't want her to see him broken. Ryder didn't leave. She sat down on the ottoman opposite him. She picked up the bourbon glass and moved it out of his reach. "My father used to drink when he got sad," Ryder said quietly, looking at the fire dying in the hearth. "He said it drowned the ghosts, but they always learned how to swim." Declan looked at her, surprised by the personal admission. She never talked about herself. "What happened to him?" Declan asked. "He drank until his liver gave out. 6 years ago. I was 16. She looked up at Declan, her hazel eyes calm and steady in the firelight. "The booze won't fix what's broken inside you, Declan. It just preserves the rot." Declan stared at her for a long time. The storm raged outside, rain lashing against the high windows. In this massive house, full of guards and servants, he realized this tiny woman in scrubs was the only person who saw him as a human being, not a weapon or a paycheck. He reached out slowly, tentatively, and picked up the chamomile tea. His hand brushed hers. The electric jolt was still there, stronger now. He took a sip. He didn't say thank you. He didn't have to. Upstairs in the master wing, Don Salvatore watched the library camera feed on his iPad. His eyes narrowed. He saw his wild, uncontrollable son take tea from the little nurse. He saw the look in Declan's eyes. Salvatore didn't like it. A dog that only listened to one master was useful. A dog that was falling in love with the help was a liability. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Henderson." "Yes, the girl you fired. Ryder Mitchell. I want everything you have on her. Every dirty little secret. Now." A month into her employment, Ryder was told she was attending the annual Moretti Foundation Gala. "It's black tie," Declan told her, dropping a garment bag onto her bed in the guest cottage. "You're coming as my medical attendant just in case. But you need to look the part. Father insists on appearances." The dress inside was emerald green silk, backless and floor-length. It was stunning and terrifyingly expensive. "Declan, I can't wear this. I'm staff. I should wear my uniform." "You'll wear the dress," Declan said, his tone brokering no argument. He paused at the door, looking back at her. His eyes softened slightly. "Green brings out your eyes." The gala was held in the grand ballroom of a midtown Manhattan hotel that the Morettis owned. It was a sea of diamonds, tuxedos, and fake smiles. Politicians rubbed shoulders with known mobsters, everyone pretending the money washing through the room was clean. Ryder felt exposed. The dress fit perfectly, but she felt like an imposter. She stayed close to the walls, holding Declan's emergency medical kit, disguised as an evening bag. Declan was circulating, playing the part of the dutiful son. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, but Ryder could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes constantly scanned the room for threats. "Well, well, look what the cat dragged in." A voice like oil sliding on velvet came from behind Ryder. She turned to see a man in a white dinner jacket, dripping with gold jewelry. He had slicked back black hair and eyes that undressed her instantly. It was Luca Russo, the underboss of the rival Russo crime family. The Russos and Morettis currently had an uneasy truce kept only by the mutual desire to make money. "I don't believe we've met," Luca purred, stepping too close, invading her personal space. "I know everyone in Salvatore's orbit. You're new and very pretty." "I'm staff, Mr. Russo," Ryder said coldly, trying to step back, but he cornered her against a marble pillar. "Staff?" Luca laughed. He reached out and fingered the silk strap of her dress on her shoulder. His touch made her skin crawl. "Declan doesn't dress the staff in Versace, sweetheart. You're his new pet. Tell me, is he as wild in bed as he is on the street?" Ryder slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." Luca's smile vanished. His eyes turned hard. He grabbed her upper arm, his fingers digging into her flesh cruelly. "Careful, little bird. You're swimming with sharks now. Declan might be a prince, but I'm the one who—" A shadow fell over them. Declan didn't say a word. He just grabbed Luca's wrist, the one holding Ryder, and squeezed. There was an audible crack of bone. Luca whimpered, dropping to one knee, his face turning white. The music in the ballroom seemed to stop. People turned to stare. "Get your filthy hands off her," Declan snarled, his voice low, lethal. The beast from the restaurant was back, his eyes black holes of rage. "Declan, stop," Ryder hissed, grabbing his arm. "Everyone is watching. This is what he wants. He wants you to break the truce." Declan ignored her. He was ready to snap Luca Russo's arm like a twig right there on the dance floor. He wanted blood. "Declan, look at me." Ryder stepped in front of him, blocking his view of Luca. She placed both hands flat on his chest, right over his thundering heart. He looked down at her. The red haze in his vision began to clear as he focused on her emerald eyes. "Don't give him the satisfaction," she whispered fiercely. "You are better than this. You are in control, not him, not your anger. You!" It was the first time anyone had ever told him he was better than his violence. His grip on Luca's shattered wrist loosened. He shoved the rival mobster backward onto the floor. "If you ever look in her direction again—" "Luca," Declan said, his voice terrifyingly calm now. "I won't break your wrist. I'll break your neck. And I'll do it slowly." He grabbed Ryder's hand, his grip tight and possessive, and pulled her through the parting crowd toward the exit. Up on the mezzanine balcony overlooking the ballroom, Don Salvatore watched the scene unfold. He took a sip of champagne. "The Russo boy is an idiot," Salvatore murmured to his consigliere, standing beside him. "But he proved my point." "Which is Don Salvatore?" "That girl is Declan's weakness," Salvatore said coldly. "He almost started a war for her tonight. He is compromised. What do you want done with her? Shall we remove the problem?" Salvatore watched as Declan ushered Ryder into a waiting elevator, his body curved protectively around hers. "No, not yet. If we take her away now, he'll burn the city down trying to find who did it. We need to make him want to get rid of her. We need to show him that she is a cancer." Salvatore smiled grimly. "Did you get the file on her father?" "Yes, Don Salvatore. It seems the apple didn't fall far from the tree." "Good. It's time to introduce Miss Mitchell to the realities of our world. Let's see if her saintly act holds up when she has blood on her own hands." The drive back from the gala was quiet, but it wasn't the tense, suffocating silence that usually filled the car when Declan was angry. It was a heavy, charged silence. Ryder sat in the passenger seat of the R8, watching the city lights blur into streaks of gold and red against the rain-slicked windows. She was still trembling slightly from the encounter with Luca Russo. Not from fear of the man, but from the terrifying sight of Declan ready to kill him. She had seen the monster again, the one who flipped tables, but this time he had leashed it. For her. Declan reached over his hand, finding hers in the dark. He didn't say anything. He just laced his fingers through hers, his grip tight, grounding himself. When they arrived at the estate, the mood shifted instantly. The head of security, a man named Vance, no Vance, let's use Rocco, was waiting at the front steps. He looked uncomfortable. "Declan," Rocco said, stepping forward. "Your father wants to see you in the study. Immediately. Alone." Declan's jaw tightened. He squeezed Ryder's hand one last time before letting go. "Go to the cottage. Lock the door. I'll come by later." Ryder watched him walk up the massive stone steps, a bad feeling settling in the pit of her stomach. She went to the guest cottage, but she didn't lock the door. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in the emerald green gown, waiting. Inside the main house, the study was cold. Don Salvatore was not sitting behind his desk. He was standing by the fireplace, feeding a document into the flames. "You embarrassed the family tonight," Salvatore said without turning around. "I protected the family," Declan countered, pouring himself a drink he didn't really want. "Luca Russo put his hands on my staff. If I did nothing, we look weak." "Staff," Salvatore repeated the word with a sneer. He turned around, his eyes hard. "Is that what she is? Or is she the reason you almost started a war with the Russos? Before we are ready. She has nothing to do with business." "She has everything to do with business, Declan." Salvatore slammed his hand on the mantel. "Because she is a liability, and I have proof." Salvatore walked to his desk and picked up a manila envelope. He tossed it onto the coffee table in front of Declan. "Read it." Declan hesitated. He looked at the envelope. "What is this? The truth about your little angel of mercy." Declan picked it up. Inside were photographs, grainy, zoomed-in photos taken with a long lens. The first photo showed Ryder standing on a street corner in the East Village. She was talking to a man. Declan squinted. The man was wearing a hoodie, but the face was visible in profile. It was Luca Russo. The timestamp on the photo was 3 weeks ago, 2 days after Ryder started working at the estate. Declan felt the blood drain from his face. This could be anything. A coincidence. "Keep looking," Salvatore said coldly. The next document was a bank statement, an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account holder's name, Ryder Mitchell. There was a deposit of $50,000, dated the day after the photo was taken. The source of the funds was a shell company Declan knew belonged to the Russo family. Declan's hands began to shake. The room started to spin. "Her father was a gambler, Declan." Salvatore's voice was a snake slithering into his ear. "He died owing money to everyone in the city, including the Russos. The girl inherited the debt. She didn't come to L'Horizonte by accident that night. She didn't bandage your hand out of kindness. It was a setup. She was planted to get close to you, to find our weaknesses." "No," Declan whispered, the denial tasting like ash. "No, she's not. She isn't like that." "You're lying." "Am I?" Salvatore walked over and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Think about it. Who is the only person who can calm you down? The only person you listen to. She has you on a leash, son, and she's handing the other end of that leash to Luca Russo." Declan looked at the photo again. Ryder and Luca, talking. The memory of the gala flashed in his mind. Luca touching her. "I don't believe we've met," Luca had said. Was it a script? Was it all a performance? The betrayal hit him harder than a bullet. He had opened his chest to her. He had shown her his nightmares, and she was sold, bought and paid for, by the enemy. The monster inside him didn't just wake up. It broke its chains. Ryder had just unzipped the back of her dress when the door to the cottage was kicked open. The wood splintered. The door banged against the wall with a violence that shook the small house. Ryder spun around, clutching the green silk to her chest. "Declan, what happened is—" She stopped. Declan stood in the doorway. He wasn't the man who had held her hand in the car. He was the man from the restaurant, but worse. His eyes were dead. Completely, utterly dead. He walked toward her. He didn't run. He stalked. "Declan," she whispered, backing up until her legs hit the bed. He threw the photos and the bank statements at her. They fluttered down like dirty confetti landing on the bedspread. "How much?" he asked. His voice was a rasp devoid of emotion. Ryder looked down at the photos. She saw herself on the street corner. She recognized the day. A man had asked her for directions to the subway. She had pointed. She didn't know it was Luca Russo. She had never seen Luca Russo before tonight. And the bank statement? She had never been to the Cayman Islands. She didn't have $50, let alone 50,000. I don't know what this is," Ryder stammered, looking up at him. "Declan, this isn't real." "Don't lie to me!" The roar was so loud it made the windows rattle. Declan grabbed a lamp from the bedside table and smashed it against the wall. Nana Rose woke up behind the partition, letting out a terrified, wheezing cry. "Declan, stop. You're scaring her," Ryder screamed, stepping in front of the partition. "Scaring her." Declan laughed, a broken, manic sound. "You sold me out, Ryder. You sold me to the Russos. Did you enjoy it? Did you laugh with Luca about the stupid, broken Moretti boy who cries in his sleep? I never spoke to him." Ryder was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "That photo he asked for directions. I didn't know who he was. And that money. I don't have that money. Check my accounts. Declan, I'm broke. I'm still paying off my student loans." "It's in an offshore account." Declan stepped closer, towering over her. "You played me perfectly. You saw the blood, you saw the rage, and you knew exactly how to dismantle me." He reached out and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. His grip was bruising. "I should kill you," he whispered, his face inches from hers. "My father wants me to kill you. He says a mole has to be buried." Ryder stared into his eyes. She saw the pain there. The agonizing, childish heartbreak buried under the layers of Mafia cruelty. He wanted to believe her, but he didn't know how. He had been raised in a world where everyone lied. "Then do it," Ryder said softly, her voice shaking but clear. "If you believe I could do that to you, after everything, then you might as well kill me, because I can't survive you hating me." Declan's hand trembled. He looked at her lips, her eyes the pulse beating in her neck. He remembered the napkin. He remembered the tea. He released her as if she were made of fire. He stumbled back. "Get out!" he choked out. "Pack your things, take your grandmother, and get out. If I see you in this city again, if I ever see your face, I will finish what I started. Declan, please." "Go!" he screamed, overturning the dresser. Ryder didn't argue. She knew he was on the edge of a precipice. If she stayed, he would do something he couldn't come back from. She packed 2 bags in 5 minutes. She helped Nana Rose, confused and frail, into her coat. Declan stood in the living room of the cottage, his back to them, staring at the wall, breathing like a wounded animal. He didn't turn around as they walked out into the rain. He waited until the door clicked shut. Then he sank to his knees in the wreckage of the room, put his head in his hands, and let out a scream that sounded like a soul being torn in half. 2 weeks passed. New York City was suffering. A heat wave had settled over Manhattan, but the mood in the underworld was freezing cold. Declan Moretti had gone rogue. Since the night Ryder left, he hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He had become a phantom of violence. He was hitting Russo strongholds without his father's permission, burning down warehouses, hijacking trucks, beating men within an inch of their lives. He was looking for something. He told himself he was looking for revenge. But deep down, he was looking for pain. He wanted to hurt enough to forget the look in Ryder's eyes when he threw her out. He was currently in the basement of a meat-packing plant owned by the Morettis. Tied to a chair in the center of the room was a mid-level Russo soldier named Vinny. Vinny was in bad shape. Declan had been working on him for an hour. "Tell me." Declan said, his voice a monotone drone. He wiped his bloody knuckles on a rag, a stark contrast to the white napkin Ryder had once used. "Tell me about the girl." "I don't know no girl." Vinny spat blood. "I told you, man, I don't know." Declan grabbed a steel pipe. "Ryder Mitchell, the nurse. The one Luca bought. How long has she been on your payroll?" Vinny looked genuinely confused. Luca doesn't pay for info, man. He's too cheap. He gets his info from the whores at the Cobalt Club." Declan paused. "She met him in the East Village 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago. Vinny laughed, a gurgling sound. 3 weeks ago, Luca was in Miami, you idiot. He was closing the deal on the cocaine shipment. He didn't come back to the city until the day of your gala." Declan froze. The pipe clattered to the concrete floor. "What?" "Check the flight logs if you don't believe me," Vinny wheezed. "Luca was in Miami for a week. He wasn't in the East Village." Declan felt the world tilt. If Luca was in Miami, the photo was fake. Not just out of context. Doctored. And if the photo was fake, the bank statement was fake. Declan turned and ran. He left the basement, sprinted up the stairs, and burst out into the alleyway. He fumbled for his phone. He called the private investigator he used for his own side deals, not his father's man. "Trace a bank transfer," Declan barked. "Cayman Islands, account name Ryder Mitchell. Find out where the money actually came from, now." He waited in the alley, pacing his heart, hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. "It's a dummy account, Declan," the PI said. "It was opened remotely 2 days before you asked about it. The money was transferred from a holding company called Sanctum LLC. Who owns Sanctum? Your father does. It's the shell company he uses to pay off the police commissioner." Declan dropped the phone. The screen cracked on the pavement. It was all a lie. His father had seen Declan getting too close to a civilian, too close to healing, and he had surgically removed her. He had framed an innocent woman, a woman who had saved Declan's life in 100 small ways, and he had used Declan's own trauma to do it. Declan looked at his hands. They were covered in Vinny's blood. But all he could feel was the phantom touch of Ryder's hand on his. "I can't survive you hating me," she had said. Declan got into his car. He didn't drive to the estate to kill his father, not yet. That would come later. He drove to the East Village, to 42B. He took the stairs, 4 at a time. He pounded on the door of 4C. "Ryder, Ryder, open the door." There was no answer. The door was unlocked. Declan pushed it open. The apartment was empty, stripped bare. No furniture, no curtain, just dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. He ran to the landlord's door downstairs. He kicked it until Petrocelli opened it, looking terrified. "Where are they?" Declan grabbed him by the collar. "The girl and the old woman. Where did they go?" "They're gone," Petrocelli squealed. "They left the night they came back from your place. The old lady. She was sick, really sick." "Where?" "The hospital St. Jude's. The girl took her there. But..." Petrocelli stopped looking at Declan with pity. "I heard from the neighbor. The old lady died 2 days ago." Declan let him go. He stumbled back. She was alone. Nana Rose was dead. Ryder had lost the only family she had, and she had done it while Declan was hunting down imaginary enemies believing she was a traitor. "Where is Ryder now?" Declan asked, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," Petrocelli said, "but some guys came looking for her yesterday. Guys in a black van. They weren't cops. They looked like you." Declan's blood ran cold. If his father knew Ryder was innocent, he wouldn't care. But if the Russos found out that Declan Moretti had a weakness and that he had cast her out, leaving her unprotected, the Russos hadn't bought her. But they had definitely found her. Declan ran back to his car. He dialed the one number he swore he would never dial for help. His cousin Matteo, the only man in the family who hated Salvatore as much as Declan did. "Matteo," Declan said, engine roaring as he tore through a red light. "I need every gun we have. Not father's men, my men. The Russos have Ryder." "Who's Ryder?" Matteo asked. "The woman I'm going to burn the city down for." The final confrontation didn't happen in a palace, but in a skeletal half-finished skyscraper overlooking the Hudson. Luca Russo held Ryder as a human shield, but he had underestimated one thing. Declan Moretti was no longer a man fueled by blind rage. He was a man fueled by a singular, cold purpose. When Declan arrived, he didn't come with an army. He walked in alone, dropping his weapons at the door. "Let her go, Luca," Declan said, his voice echoing through the hollow concrete. "This is between you and the Moretti name. She's just a girl who poured a glass of water." "She's the girl who made you weak," Luca sneered, pressing a pistol to Ryder's temple. "No," Declan said, stepping into the light, his eyes fixed on Ryder's. "She's the girl who made me human, and that makes me the most dangerous man you've ever met." In a blur of motion, Declan didn't reach for a gun. He triggered the building's emergency fire alarms. The sudden deafening shriek and the burst of strobe lights blinded Luca for a split second. It was all the opening Declan needed. He moved with the precision of a predator, disarming Luca and pinning him to the edge of the open floor. But he didn't throw him over. He looked at Ryder, who stood trembling but silent, her hazel eyes pleading for him to choose a different path. Declan let Luca go, handing him over to the police who arrived minutes later. Police Declan had called himself, finally breaking the family code of silence. By turning over the Russos and providing the evidence of his father's frame-up, Declan dismantled the empire that had sought to destroy his soul. Months later, the dust settled. The Moretti name was no longer a curse. Declan stood in a small, quiet garden in the Hudson Valley, far from the shadows of the city. He wasn't wearing a bespoke suit. He was wearing a simple sweater, his hands no longer stained with blood. Ryder came out of the cottage carrying 2 mugs of tea. She didn't say a word as she handed one to him. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. He took her hand, the one that had once wrapped his knuckles in a paper napkin, and kissed her palm. "You saved me," he whispered. "No." She smiled, finally at peace. "You just finally stopped the bleeding." Some people think power is found in a gun or a pile of money. But as Declan Moretti learned, the greatest power on earth is the quiet kindness of a stranger who sees your soul when the rest of the world only sees a monster. This wasn't just a story about the Mafia. It was a story about the light that finds us in our darkest moments. If you were moved by Declan and Ryder's journey from the wreckage of that restaurant to the peace of their new life, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you enjoyed this drama, share this video with someone who loves a good redemption story, and subscribe to our channel to join our community of storytellers. Every sub helps us bring more of these cinematic tales to life. Thank you for watching, and remember, even in the middle of the chaos, never forget to be kind. See you in the next story.